Hey guys, it's me again. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today. My allergies have been really flaring up, but today's the first day I felt good enough to go ahead and try and film. So today I woke up and I chose public humiliation. I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about books, ranking books, criticizing books, but I myself have written a bad book. This is a Wattpad trash story that I started writing in junior high. So around like 2014 is when I started writing it. And then last time I even touched this writing wise was in 2019 to go back and try and salvage it. But there was like no salvaging it. It isn't even finished, but it's like 217 pages of pure trash. So I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and read you some of that today, and if this video does really well, I'll do a part 2. I don't even know if I should tell you the name of this. It's like that embarrassing, and it's still on Wattpad. So I think I'll just leave that a secret for now, because it's so bad. So before I get into the prologue I wrote in like 2019. So it's fairly decent. And then we get into chapter 1, and the quality is like mid-tier. You go to chapter 1, it goes So there's your warning. Now let's get into it. Sometimes at night when I struggle to sleep, I think about the beginning. My naked body being stabbed by thousands of blades of grass. The confusion when I sat up and tried to recall how I got there. My astonishment when I examined the multitude of scratches I had acquired, yet their origin was unknown. How could I ever forget the day I forgot everything? It haunts me. Every night my head hits the pillow, I fear I'll wake up forgetting all that has transpired over the past couple years. The amount of panic I felt when I tried to recall what happened, but there was nothing. Or when I tried to recall anything, but there was nothing. All I had was knowledge, but no memories of how I acquired that knowledge. I knew the grass below me was grass, but I don't know who taught me that. My vocabulary was expansive, but I don't remember even touching a dictionary, or why I knew what that was. I knew my birthday, but I had no memories of celebration. My name was Tessa, but I couldn't recall who had given me that name. Side note, my name is Tessa. I was just so uncreative in naming that I just said, her name's Tessa. Stumbling to my feet, my legs knew how to walk, run, skip, and jump. The wind picked up my hair and wrapped it around my face. I blew it out of my face and rubbed my arms that the wind had chilled. Food. I was so hungry. The woods engulfed me as I wandered aimlessly. My eyes caught a glimpse of mushrooms. I fell to my knees in front of them and examined them, but I couldn't eat them. My brain warned me of their danger if consumed. My hands shrunk back from them, and I climbed back to my feet. A frog leapt across the forest floor. Instinctively, I caught it in my hand, sending it back down. I created a dome around it with my hand. I picked up one of many sticks scattered across the ground. The frog threw itself against my hand, trying to break free. Anxiety made my hand shake slightly, but the growl of my stomach gave me the courage I needed to do what had to be done. Taking the stick, I quickly lifted up my hand and squashed the frog's head in. Lifting up the stick, I brought it down to the ground as hard as I could, over and over again. The front half of the frog turned to mush, leaving just the legs. Disgusted, I didn't want to eat it, but it was my best option. Swallowing my pride, I picked it up and ate the frog legs. My need for food overrode the taste of it, and I devoured it in seconds. At that moment, I knew I could do this. I would prevail. So that was the prologue. Like I said, not that bad. Chapter 1, though, it's a doozy. Chapter 1. I jumped down from the fire escape of the abandoned building I had been squatting in. It had been a couple of days since I saw the flyer for the farmer's market, and the day had finally come. At this point, I would eat a raw rat, anything to give me the slightest bit of sustenance. I was living off of scraps at that point in time. Pushing the thought away, I ran through the alleys. I'd been on the streets for so long I could have done it blindfolded. Reaching the end of an alley that would lead out to the square where the farmer's market was taking place, I leaned against the cool brick wall. Gotta get food, I thought to myself as my stomach growled like a ravenous beast. Quickly, I peeked around the corner to catch a glimpse of the farmer's market. I really hated doing this, but I was so hungry. My nerves made my heart pound. I could hear it hammering in my ears. At a glimpse, the lady at one of the stands seemed to be preoccupied with a conversation she was having with another customer. As a girl, I knew how long As a girl, I knew how long a woman could stand and talk. This was my opportunity. Deep breaths, I thought as I closed my eyes. Why is this so hard? I'm 18, an adult. I'm not going to look suspicious at a farmer's market, for God's sakes. The mini pep talk gave me the courage I needed to exit my little hideout and enter into the farmer's market. My feet clicked against the bricked crosswalk. It seemed so loud. I felt as if everyone was watching me. In reality, no one could care less. I looked around at all the fresh foods. Everything smelled so amazing. The smells triggered my salivary glands, and I could feel the drool pool in my mouth. Swallowing, I checked back over to the sales lady. The woman was still in full conversation with the other customer. Even though she was distracted, I needed to play it safe. Quickly, I grabbed a juicy red apple, some strawberries, and a carrot, and put them in my messenger bag. Voila! I spun on my heel and I stalked out of the market, making sure to be as casual as I possibly could. Checking behind me to make sure I wasn't being followed, I caught some guy staring at me. He flashed me a bright smile once our eyes met. Act normal. With a weak smile, I gave a slight wave in his direction and got out of there. After walking a few blocks, I turned into an alleyway and found a spot to sit and eat. Walking over to where a cardboard box had been flipped on its side, I began rummaging through my bag. Flipping over the cardboard box, I sat down, then pulled out the apple. Taking a big bite out of it, I moaned. It was so good. Honestly, at that point, I would have been moaning no matter what I was eating. Oh no. I don't remember you paying for that, I heard a voice say. Shit, busted. Slowly, I turned to see the guy who was staring at me before. I'm sorry, do I know you? I said, trying to play it off like I had no idea what he was talking about. No, but I wouldn't expect you to, he shrugged. Well, I don't know why you're so concerned about some fruits and vegetables. I smirked. Top tier dialogue. What can I say? I could care less about the fruit. I worry about young women that are living on the streets doing whatever needs to be done to survive, even if it means corrupting their morals, he said. At that point, I wasn't sure what to say back. He'd hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it's survival of the fittest, and I've been forced to do things I'm not proud of. So you're not going to call the cops? Making sure my ass was covered. Lucky for you, I don't go to the police when I have an issue, he said, then stuck out his hand. Especially someone with your unique abilities. This raised a red flag for me. Standing up slowly, I then hightailed it down the alley. When I was almost out of the alley, I felt something pinch my calf. Confused, I looked back at my leg and saw what looked to be a trank dart hanging out of it. Before I could start panicking, I started to get very sleepy. My legs gave out from under me. Then slowly, the whole world turned black. I do remember before I had edited this, she had thought, who the hell carries a tranquilizer gun on them? Which is almost a bit too on the nose. This whole book is a bit too on the nose, honestly. It's a mess. When I woke up, I was in a room with white walls and flooring, seated in a cold metallic chair that was pushed into a matching table. I went to rub my eyes, but was stopped by something restraining my hand. Once my eyes adjusted, I was able to see I was handcuffed to the table. If things couldn't get worse, the douchebag was in there too. I couldn't do anything but glare at him. His amber eyes seemed intrigued by my fiery gaze, yet he didn't seem fazed in the slightest by it. I was able to get a good look at him in the bright room. Tan skin, beautiful amber eyes, and tousled black hair. "Don't glare at me. I gave you a chance to come here peacefully," he said. "Now let's be honest with each other so we can get this over with." I groaned. "Fine." "Okay then, so my name is Jericho. I am Alpha of the Eastmund Pack. Now tell me, what is your name and title?" he said. "My name is Tessa. What the hell is a title?" I said, giving him a confused look. "Well, from what I've seen so far, that's the best I'm going to get. Now, Tessa, do you have anyone we could contact?" He sat on the edge of the table and clasped his hands in front of him. "Nope." I shifted away from him slightly. "Really? No family? Friends? Lovers?" His hands trailed along the table. "If I said no the first time, what do you think?" I glared. "Not even a pack?" He peeked his head up to look at me. "What the hell do you mean, pack?" I blurted as I tried to gesture with my arms, just to be stopped by my handcuffs. "Come on, you know I'm an alpha. You don't have to hide your identity." "You're crazy. I've got nothing to hide." I turned my gaze to the mirror in the room. A part of me wondered if there was anyone behind it, just waiting and watching. "How did you end up here on the streets?" My attention snapped back to the conversation at hand, or interrogation, more like. "I don't know. I can't remember anything from ages 0 to 14. I tapped my fingers along the table, making a clinging sound. "Are you saying you've been on your own since you were 15? His body edged slightly closer to mine. "Yeah." I knew he didn't believe me. I wouldn't believe me either. I looked up at him and stared deep into his amber eyes, and he stared right back into my brown. "I don't believe you," he said, "and I think you're part of our little runaway problem. The council will be happy to help you find your parents." "My parents," I said. "I don't even know who my parents are." "The council will help you figure it out," he said dismissively. "What is the council?" I scoffed. "You know as well as I do. They set our laws and oversee that every werebeast pack is being ruled over properly." He itched the back of his head. "What the hell are you talking about?" I yelled. "Stop lying. You ran away from your pack, and you know it. Did you think it'd be fun? Were all the other kids doing it, so you decided you'd join in?" he said in a mocking tone. "Man, you're fucking crazy. Just let me go. I'd rather go back to the streets than stay in this room," I said as I began to struggle against my restraints. My skin around my wrists started to become raw. "You're not going anywhere," he said as he slammed his fist on the table. The leg of the table bent under the force of the blow, and he swore under his breath. I looked up at him, and I began to tremble with fear. His eyes glowed a bright yellow. "Ooh, ooh." He composed himself, and his eyes returned to their regular amber color. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get that upset. I'm just passionate about this issue. All I want to do is help the next generation of werewolves. I was frozen with fear. I could barely muster up enough courage to speak. All I could barely muster up enough courage to speak. 10 out of 10 grammar. Werewolves aren't real. It was more me reminding myself that they weren't real rather than me responding to his comment. He looked me in the eyes and sighed. You really don't know, do you? No, I don't. Please don't hurt me. Just let me go home, I pleaded. Well, you've seen and heard too much now. I can't let you do that. He turned his back to me and began rubbing his face. Just please don't hurt me, I said as I began to scoot the chair back as far as my restraints would let me. Damn it, how is this possible? I can tell by your scent you're not human. How do you not know about any of this? He looked back at me for answers, but I had none. I don't know. I'm 100% human. I shook my head, wishing the chair could go back further. He took a deep breath. Then he just left. I took the time to keep pulling at my handcuffs as if somehow they'd break if I kept pulling. Sweat began to drip off my brow. I was really getting worked up. My hand smacked against the table in frustration and I leaned back in my chair. I sat there trying to process what just happened. Could these people actually be werewolves? No, that's impossible. They're not real, just some story parents make up to scare their kids. But why would his eyes glow like that? The room was bright, but not bright enough to make his eyes look yellow. I sighed. None of this made sense. I needed more proof. Maybe I was just seeing things. My eyes locked onto the dent in the table. Either way, these people are dangerous. I'm way in over my head. It didn't seem like I was at the liberty to negotiate. What was the point in trying to fight with these people? They were obviously much stronger than I was. It'd just be for the best to play along for now. About 10 minutes later, Jericho returned. His hands ran over his face and dropped back down to his sides. I'm going to have to ask you to stay here with us for the time being. My jaw dropped, but I quickly remembered to play along. Why would you do that? He shook his head and leaned against the wall. As I said, you know too much. We don't really have a choice. Plus, I don't know what you are, but it's not human, and I intend to get to the bottom of it. My hands trembled slightly with a mixture of fear and anxiety. Shoving it down to the pit of my stomach, I composed myself. And like I told you, I am human. But hey, if you're going to be giving me free room and board, by all means, be my guest. Silently, I kicked myself for showing attitude. He was the one who kidnapped me, though. The least he could do was put up with it. Spoken like a real teenage girl writing this. I'm not a fan of your attitude, he grimaced as he crossed his arms. Well, you're keeping me prisoner. I think I'm at least entitled to have a bit of an attitude, I shrugged. He popped his neck, rotating it back and forth. You're not a prisoner. My wife has insisted you have a bed to sleep in. There was a slight pause. And that I act a little nicer. I let out a laugh. This big guy was being bossed around by his wife? Can you say whipped? His glare cut off my laugh abruptly. Quickly, I cleared my throat. You know, it'd be really nice of you to undo these cuffs. I nodded my head, then tugged on the handcuffs while raising one eyebrow. Shooting me an annoyed glare, he walked over to me and undid the cuffs. My poor wrists were so raw, I rubbed them gently. Follow me, he ordered. Once out of the interrogation room, it looked like we were in a basement. Both the wall and floor were smooth gray stone, and it was very poorly lit. Jer then led me down a short corridor, which led to a staircase going up. I looked behind me and noticed there were more doors down there. Jer must have noticed I was staring back at the doors. He explained. Our infirmary and training room are also down there. Why on earth would you need either of those? I scrunched up my nose. Well, when we get hurt, we go to the infirmary. In order to protect ourselves, we need to know how to fight. We need to learn how to fight and keep practicing our skills, so we have a training room. He talked to me as if I were a child and continued up the steps. His tone frustrated me, but I had to keep following him. I followed him upstairs. At the top of the stairs, we were at what looked like a living room. It was lit much better than downstairs and was much more welcoming. It had hardwood floors and beige-colored walls. The living room led into the kitchen, which had the same wall and floor as the living room. In addition to the marble countertops and a grand red oak dinner table with 8 matching chairs, then to the left was a staircase leading upstairs. Little knickknacks were shelved across the room. For someone as unpleasant as Jericho, it seemed rather homey. I was so busy gawking at the interior that I didn't even notice the woman in the kitchen. "Hello, you must be Tessa," she said, making me jump a little. "I'm Emma, Jer's wife. I'm so sorry for this whole mishap." She walked over to me and patted my shoulder. "Hopefully we'll be able to make it up to you." Hopefully we'll be able to make it up to you for, kidnapping you, but it's neither here nor there. Am I right? Thanks. It's beautiful, I said. And so was Emma. She had beautiful silver eyes and black hair. Her skin had an olive tint to it, but it suited her. Her features were perfect. They were angular and sharp, but had just the right amount of softness to them. She laughed, but not just with her vocal cords. Her whole body seemed to laugh with her. Even her eyes were full of glee. "I'd hope so. It's your home now, too." It didn't seem right. I don't have a home. The streets weren't even considered home. For as long as I can remember, I've never had a bed to sleep in. Oddly enough, I was all right with that. There was a certain thrill to having to be moving around all the time. Emma's voice pulled me down to the ground. "Would you like to see your room, dear?" "Well, technically it's not your room," Jer said. "You're actually going to be sharing a room with my son Jay. He'll keep an eye on you at night. Make sure you don't run away." Such a trusting bunch. I bit my tongue and just nodded. Still a free bed, but if he's a creep, I can't promise what happens if he tries to pull some moves on me. "Don't worry, dear. I'll show it to her." Emma put a hand up towards him. She looked over at me and gestured to the staircase. "It'll be up this way." She let me go ahead of her up the steps and met me at my side at the top. She walked down the short hall to the first door on the right and held the door open for me. Stepping in the room, I quickly scanned the surroundings. For a man living with his parents, it's fairly clean. I guess that's a positive. And there are no pungent odors. The walls were bluish gray. The floor was a nice shaggy carpet that felt nice underneath my bare feet. There were 2 beds on each side of the room. One with navy blue sheets and comforter. The other, which I assume was mine, just had plain white sheets. Emma walked over to the plain bed and showed it off as if it were a brand new car. "This will be your bed." All I did was nod in response. "Oh, and the bathroom is over here," she said, as she brushed past me to another door that was at the end of the bed with navy blue sheets. Instinctively, I pulled back away from her as her skin brushed against mine. She turned back to me due to my sudden movement. Silence fell over the room. The tension was so thick, I was surprised I could still breathe. Emma gave me an uneasy smile as she brushed it off and continued on. She opened the door and motioned for me to come join her. Some clothes were set up on the countertop. "So I've given you some of my clothes to hold you over until we can get you some of your own things. And I've given you some little travel bottles of shampoo, conditioner, body wash, all that." She talked with her hands. The awkward silence fell back over us. Emma nodded her head and clasped her hands in front of her. "Well, I will give you some time to adjust." She walked towards the door. I quickly moved out of her way to avoid the awkward contact we had just had. Once the door shut behind her, I decided to snoop around a bit. Sauntering over to the closet, I hoped to find something interesting. Yanking the door open, some clothes fell out. As I picked them up and put them back where they belonged, I noticed a poster of a naked girl on the inside of the door. Examining it closely, the edges looked frayed. It must have been up for a while. Naughty boy. Naughty boy. Shutting the closet, I turned my attention to the rest of the room. I spotted the nightstand by each bed and went through mine first. Empty. Moving over to my roommate's, I hoped to find something that could tell me more about him. All I got was a notebook, a pen, and a couple of condoms. A sensible man, if you ask me. With a sigh, I walked over to my bed to lay down and stare at the ceiling. Emma seems really nice, but she did marry Jericho, so there must be something I'm missing there. The feeling of nervousness gnawed at me. Who's this Jay? How am I going to get out of here? How long will I be able to keep this charade up? Even scarier, what if I end up actually liking it here? A shiver ran down my spine. The sudden cold made a warm shower sound nice. I went back to the bathroom and shut the door behind me. Going through the cabinets, my thoughts continued to pick at me. Eventually, I found a towel and set it out. Flipping on the faucet, I began getting undressed. Then I hopped in the shower. It felt so warm and amazing. I could have stayed there for hours. After about 20 minutes in the shower, the water began to get cold. Reluctantly, I got out and stood there for a moment to admire the bathroom, with its white-tiled floor and walls. I ended up staring there for God knows how long. I jumped out of my skin when I heard the doorknob turning. Quickly, I grabbed my towel and covered up myself. A man who looked to be around 20 entered the bathroom. Whoa. His voice was melodic and smooth. It was relaxing, but not in this situation. He pulled the door back a little and stared at the wall. "Hi?" I said, not really sure what else to say. Hi," he said. "I'm gonna go use the other bathroom now." "Good idea," I said as he shut the door. I knew who he was. Jay, my roommate. He was the perfect combination of his parents. He had his mother's nicely shaped features and eyes, but his father's hair and skin color. One thing was for sure, though. He was hot. All about the superficials here. Too bad things don't seem to be boding well for him in the creep category. After I quickly got dressed, I walked out of the bathroom to see Jay sitting on my bed. He looked up at me and smiled. "I thought we should talk." He patted a spot next to him. "Come sit." He seemed warm and welcoming like his mother, but we probably should talk. Being a little rebellious, I sat on his bed instead of sitting next to him. He watched me sit down and shook his head, but continued with what he wanted to say. "So the first thing that has come to my attention, do you know what a lock is?" At this, I laughed. Not a fake one either. He got me. "Yes, I just didn't know where you were, and I figured you'd do this thing called knocking." He shrugged and chuckled a bit. "I guess you got me there." I ran my tongue over my teeth, debating if I should say what I wanted to. He looked at me expectantly, as if he were waiting for me to speak. Shaking my head, I decided to go for it. "Something that's come to my attention. That thing in the closet?" "Oh, yeah, that," he nodded with a smirk. "Yeah, that," I laughed. And that's the end of chapter 1. Like I said, if you guys enjoy this video, I will do a part 2, so make sure to give that a like if you did enjoy. If you want to see more of my videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you're able, go support your local bookstore. I didn't mention any books other than what I wrote in this, so there'll be no books linked in the description. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next Saturday. Thanks for watching. Bye!